Johnny Constant from the Aim and Skill Company here in Hillbilly Caviar Studios. You're watching Guitar Tales with Dave Cohn. All Dave, all day. Get you some.
So we have Johnny Compton and Corey Feldman right next to each other at the beginning of the show, because I wanted to open by saying the great Johnny Compton. Does that mean I say the great Corey Feldman? Maybe I do. We have a really fun show tonight with a very grumpy guy who will be joining us, JR Everhart, who's fabulous. I've been watching his YouTube videos. And before we take him out of the green room and into this room, as we do every week, we'd like to thank our sponsor, which is the great Charles Larita of the Great Mischief Studios. Go there to get your instrument fixed, and then you record the next great tune on it, and you make friends over there. You take some lessons, and you market it. You'll get all that done there. Charles is fabulous. So we really highly recommend you go there. The other thing we'd like you to do for us, which is a lot of effort, it's really difficult, but we think you could do it. We have faith in you. Subscribe. It's a challenge, but you could pull it off. We have confidence in you. And all that silliness aside, if you do that, you'll get a little bit more in your feed from our show. We put out a lot of content, and not me, but Scott Guitarmacist Engel, who will be co-hosting with me tonight, does a fabulous job of taking a nice, long, beefy show like we'll be doing tonight, and he gets all these little chunks. So you'll get the 1 to 2 minute clips, and they're just like a little thing to brighten your day. Maybe you get a chuckle out of it. Maybe you learn. Maybe you're just mildly entertained. If you subscribe to the show, like just by hitting that, and we have the icon there, you can take your phone. We have the QR code there. It'll end up in your feed a little more often, and you could watch us. It helps us get the word out. It helps us get great guests like JR, because we have JR tonight because he started watching the show about a year or two ago. So it also helps us to get better content. So with that being said, we're pulling 2 people into the studio, and JR Everhart, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's funny. Scott was chatting with us earlier, and he's hopping in the studio soon, I believe. We already did a show because it's just people who love music talking. And then Scott did the right thing. He shut us up. He said, that's a show. And we always like to keep it organic.
You may talk now.
There we go. That's right. That's right.
Welcome to the party, Scott.
Hey, kids.
That's right.
I got my I'm seeing now finally my background matches the Halloween spirit, which is up here 24 hours a day here at in New Jersey. I'm a big horror fan.
At 33 Studios, right? Isn't that it?
Studio 33, yeah.
Yep. Broadcasting through Noise Network Studios.
As much as I love the Hillbilly Caviar Studios name, I can't use Johnny's.
Yeah. So before we get to JR, I started to tell Scott something, and he shut me up. I was one night in my life a sound man. I was in 10th grade, right before Scott and I started a band together, and I was the guitar player for a punk band, Bloody Smegma. And
that always gets everybody's attention.
Yeah. And I later became
real family-oriented band, right?
Exactly. And I wasn't in the band yet. They had me do sound. They were playing at Trenton State College, and they were so bad that someone shut the power on them. And I was in 10th grade, and I was trying to chat it up with a college woman. And I told her that I went to Goucher College, not knowing it's an all-girls school. And that's about as successful as I was that night. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's still rock and roll.
It's still rock and roll. I don't know if they were rock and roll. My first day with the band, I said, let's tune up, guys. And they said, we don't do that.
Nice.
Which is why Scott and I ended up together. Anyway, enough about me and us. You do amazing stuff. I was watching your YouTube videos. You are an artist when it comes to sound. And because you've been in the business, I think, for 3 decades now, you put out these really cool videos. And a lot of them are, this is what grinds my gears. And I love that.
This week, we're just going to talk about things that grind my gears in the music business.
And then once you get over sort of that really cool catchphrase, which I think might, wasn't that
Family Guy, I
Family
think.
Guy? Yeah, I love Family Guy.
Yeah.
But you end up giving really helpful information, helpful advice. I heard you talking about how and when for bands should practice depending upon skill level. So my first question for you is, what got you into giving these really cool little tasty videos? What got you started with that?
COVID. COVID was kind of like the abyss of boredom, and I was just starting to dabble with TikTok a little bit, and really enjoyed the different types of content on there. Was starting to, the longer you're on there, the more the AI algorithms will start be to your interests. So I started getting some videos from other production people all over the world, and bands and the whole, because there's a ton of bands on TikTok. And I was like,
Right.
man, I got all this downtime because I mean, literally for the first months, after we had the first shutdown, I did absolutely nothing, and I was just losing. Thankfully out here in West Virginia, I have a nice, 3-acre property, and there's stuff to do around the yard. But in March, there's not a lot to do outside. So
Yeah.
I just started this, just putting rants, out of frustration on TikTok, and kind of coined the stereotype that every sound guy is. So I did the grumpy sound guy thing, thinking that, if you look at that hashtag, there's probably like 19 bazillion guys out there calling themselves the grumpy sound guy. And it turned out it really wasn't. And I was like, oh, well, wow, that's kind of interesting, and I've always sort of had a marketing mind about myself. I mean, I run my own business. So, I do pay a marketing consultants to help me out, especially since this online content has taken off. But it really just came out of, here's just a long list of like, kind of taking that Lewis Black approach, to just ranting about the music business. Guitar players that turn up after sound check. Yeah, right. Your venues that are like the size of a cigar, 8-piece horn band, and then complain about volume all night. All the things that we deal with in middle market, because really middle market is, the awareness that I'm trying to bring to my content is that middle market really represents the predominant amount of music in our country. There's probably, for every national event that happens in a major city, there's probably playing acoustic all the way up to 10-piece horn bands all around town.
Right.
Sure. So, and I think that a lot of cover bands don't realize just how big of a role the middle market plays in the music scene. So just kind of playing off all that kind of stuff, and then started the YouTube channel. Really is more of an educational thing. Like I was goofing off on TikTok, sharing it on Facebook, which Facebook is kind of where most of my fun, at least the organic stuff.
Right.
So I started the YouTube channel, like, well, here's how you do in-ear monitors. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. Even got on the console a couple times and did some live stuff where I was showing how my start scene is set up, and things like that. And then those were really long videos. And then as I started to bring the marketing guys in with me, that down and really get serious about 6 months ago, about really trying to do something with the grumpy sound guy, persona, because everywhere I go, that's what everybody wants to talk about. Like, it's gained me so much street credit that it's just ridiculous, to the point to where I have some bands that are afraid to hire me because they're afraid that I'm going to just online critique and roast them or something on my channel. I had a band like 3 weeks ago that was like, their sound guy bailed out at the last minute, and it was the last day of the month that I had open, and I was actually going to have the night off, and he called, and he's a buddy, and you know how it goes. So I went and did the gig. Right. And he was like, man, when the singers found out that you were going to be running sound, they were like, man, we really got to run. Otherwise, the grumpy sound guy is going to be talking about us on Tuesday on Facebook,
I love it. I love it.
So I think it's brought some accountability to the table, too, which, helps all of us, really.
Yeah.
You do all kinds of size venues, right? You do small and large?
Yeah. I don't do a whole bunch of pro touring level stuff. I used to freelance for some companies years ago. I'm really more just, I'll be 51 this month, and I'm trying to work smarter, not harder. You know,
Yeah,
I'm fighting feverishly to stay small. I have a mobile stage, and we have a very middle of the road, middle market, you know, audio and lighting setup. We're really good at like wine festivals, you know, brewery festivals, beer truck festivals, that middle market community concert series kind of stuff. We have a house at CLP Audio.
There's plenty of meat on the bone when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, I mean, the bigger you go, the more complicated it gets, the more stress is involved. You know, in the pro touring companies I've worked for in the past, I'm still really good friends with the owners of those companies. And they really, their life is just on 11 all the time, you know, and I just don't have a desire to be at that stress level and have, you know, an army of employees to keep up with and an admin staff. And a buddy of mine's company in Frederick just moved into a new warehouse, you know, so it's just, the numbers look great coming in, but there's a lot of overhead, and I'm not taking anything away from them. But it's not a pathway that I want to be on at this stage of my life.
No,
that makes sense. Yeah. So I have my first question about what you do then. So my favorite watering hole, 5 miles from where we are right now, they bring in really great little bands. Like I saw a couple of kids. We're old enough to call them that. They were probably 30, right? Just a young kid and probably his girlfriend. Great singer, great guitar player. It's a bar where you want to be talking at the bar. And they didn't have a sound person. It was just the two of them, you know, their kids.
Right.
But what do you do with the bands to sort of create the vibe where people can enjoy the music? But there's so many venues I'll go to where it's not a place where we're looking at the band. You know, we're having dinner, or, you know, like, let's try to get a table as far as we can from the band, that kind of venue.
Sure.
How do you take the temperature of the room, and do you ever have to fight with the band, you know, to make sure that they're at a reasonable level?
He never
I was
fights
just
with the
talking
band.
about this. I was just talking about this today in my reels and my shorts. Because this whole the shorts are just about, here's just a list of stuff that pisses me off, you know? And one of them is these venues like you're describing where the band is kind of an afterthought. You know, it's not a purpose-built venue where you're like a theater where the stage is the center of the attention of the room. The room is positioned to put you looking at the stage. It's really going to depend on the drummer and the guitar player. You know, if those guys can behave and really keep it under control, then what I typically do in that environment is mix smarter, not harder. You know, so I'm not going to put more in the sound system that needs to be in there. So I may only like put single 18 subs in, maybe only one single 18 sub, and just put a little bit of kick in there for presence. You know, maybe the bass or the left hand of the keyboard in there just for presence. Obviously, if you have a keyboard player, they're going to depend on the system, so you got to have them in the mix. Obviously, the vocals. But if the drums and the guitar get a little loud, I just pull them out of the mix and mix around that. So from the audience perspective, it just sounds like it's all even, you know, when really the only thing in the sound system board or an acoustic guitar that's a direct input instrument. I might put an overhead over the drums just to catch a little overall zone miking kind of thing. But a lot of times I don't even do that. It's really like kick and maybe floor tom. The snare is always going to pop, you know, even if you're a light hitter. I usually tell venues like that, book acoustic acts or acoustic, you know, sort of duos if you want the audience to be able to have conversation level background music, which is basically what that is. Then don't put a 4-piece rock band in there that's known for, you know, playing Slayer and Megadeth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
put a band in there that's right. You know, and it's all about adjusting your expectations of what your live music sits you. And that's something that a lot of bar owners really don't take time to think about. They're like, man, we just want to they want to make a quick buck. So they want to get the band that draws the most people, you know, shoehorn them into the corner of their room. And then when everybody, you know, can't hear each other talk and the bartender can't hear people giving, you know, taking, you know, trying to take orders over the bar, then everybody's losing their mind. And it's like, well, you're up for disaster here. Because,
That's
I mean,
exactly right. Yep.
Drums is an instrument you literally have to hit with a piece of lumber, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be loud, you know?
And then and I love what you said. You've got the drums, and say 80% of the drumming sound will be, just drum to air, right? But then you have to get everyone around them, and you have to build around them, and that's a hard task, especially if someone decides to put a drum kit in a venue where it's background music. That's got to be hellish for you.
I
I've been
don't
in that
get too
scenario.
much of that stuff because where I am financially, the fee that I charge doesn't usually fit into those budgets. So I don't get too many of those kind of gigs. If I do, it's in like where they know the band's going to be loud because they typically have college bands or they have college-esque type bands that are gearing their set lists toward college kids. So that's usually not so much of a problem. I think of a club in Frederick called Bushwallers that I mix at 2 or 3 times a year. It's about the size of a shoebox, but every set is a different crowd because in downtown Frederick, people bar, so the first set you have like crowd A, the band takes a break, the room clears out and a whole other crowd comes in, so they're charging at the door each one of those, sets. So they're actually capitalizing on the fact that people really aren't going to stay more than 40 or 50 minutes in the room because there's plenty of people coming in to replace them.
That's interesting.
So in that scenario, I always just allow the guy on stage. I think a mistake a lot of young guys make is they want to get everything in the system and have control over everything. Well, that's fine if we're at an outdoor gig or in a big room or, something like that. That's exactly what you want. But when you're in a small room, that's really what separates the men from the boys as far as sound engineering is concerned, because less is always going to be more.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it really does. And do you have issues if everyone's in the board, do you have intra-band issues where you'll have, if 2 guitar players, you've made him louder than me or her louder than me?
Oh yeah, that goes on all the time.
And as the sound guy, how do you manage that?
I really let the music dictate that.
Okay.
Rhythm player, and we have a lead player. In a lot of these like B-rated bands, A being the upper echelon, like the Amish Outlaws and Reagan Years, and the guys that really blow up the middle market here in the Mid-Atlantic. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Those kind of bands are playing different venues than B bands. In level of musicianship than B bands. So my responsibility as a sound engineer for whatever client that I'm mixing is to make that band look as good as they can possibly look. So if I have somebody in the band who's maybe not quite that great of a guitar player or that great of a whatever fill in the blank backup singer, I'm going to do my best to hide them in the mix. When it's all done and over with, when their fans are telling them how great they sounded, they're never going to know that they weren't in the mix. All they're going to know is, hey, we sounded great, man. This guy really is got it going on. And really, all I did was just try to remove the stuff that wasn't correct and mix for the music and not for the egos on stage.
Right. So you virtually remove one of the members of the band.
I try to keep them in as much as possible. When they're playing their parts right, hey, I want them there. I'm very, very dialed into that. I want to give everybody their fair shake.
That's smart. That's smart.
Yeah. I'm not trying to rob anybody of their spotlight,
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect
sense. But if you're playing the song in the wrong key, by getting you out of the way until you figure out that, hey, you need to play this in a different key.
Instead of these go to 11, these go to 0.
Well, by the way, that was my dirty little trick because I'm a crappy guitar player, and that's not fake humility. I am, but in one of my bands, I couldn't play one of the leads, and we had a better guitar player, so I would actually shut my volume and pretend. And I was at peace with that.
Yeah.
And nobody knew.
And then nowadays we got bands. Paul from Big Bang, him and I have these conversations all the time. Some of these bands really it's just karaoke. They're tracking everything, and the guitars are, they got a wireless pack with no batteries in it, and that sort of thing. And they're just kind of like doing their little dance routine, and everything sounds like the record.
We have a whole show lined up. We'll be talking about that with him.
Yeah. AI and different things are kind of ruining music a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, do you get involved with the rigs that the guitar players and the bass players have, or is that sort of just them when you're doing it?
It depends on who they are. If it's someone that I'm personal friends with, and they because I know that's kind of a sacred thing for. I'm a drummer, so I really
Okay.
don't want anybody messing with my kit unless there's someone I respect, and I'm saying, hey, what do you think about this? Or I'm having
Right.
a problem with this. Can I get your sounding board kind of thing? And I get that quite a bit. But I'm not trying to weave my way into being ultra controlling over what I mix a whole lot of guitar players that have horrible tone and don't care.
Yeah.
You know,
Really?
this is what their fans have come to know them as. And I may make a small suggestion here or there the first couple times we play together. But if I feel like those suggestions are falling on deaf ears, I'm trying to make money. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to offend this guy and come off like, dude, you're just not listening. It's horrible. That's not going to get me anywhere. This is what
Right.
this guy brings to the table. This is what their fans have gotten used to hearing. This is their sound. Whether I think it's great or I think it sucks, that's between them and the fans. I'm going to do my best as a sound guy just to reinforce it and make it sound as fat and as good as I can. But I mean, it's a microphone, man, not a miracle worker. You can only do so much with it. And with some of these cats, man, especially these guys with the pedal boards with like 28 pedals and 316 little cables go bad. Those guys are the bane of my existence because the little cables go bad and they always want to blame it on my end. Well, it didn't do it last night, so I have to jump through all the political hoops, helping them realize it in your pedal board. Plug your guitar directly into the amp and see what happens. And then when they realize, hey, I guess it is. It's just simple signal flow. Follow the signal flow, kind of thing.
That's all it is.
But I don't want to be part of that conversation because you could spend 30 or 40 minutes in this guy's pedal board without even dropping a dime, and I usually don't have time for that.
Right.
So, I mean, if you want my help, I'll help you, but this is your rig. You put it together. I'm not going to be able to wave a magic wand over it and make it stop buzzing or whatever it is that's going on.
That's the problem with some of the expensive Kemper stuff. Sounds amazing, but if that unit dies on you and you don't have a backup plan, you're in big trouble.
You're dead. And then the whole idea of, a zillion pedals. I mean, some people pull it off beautifully. And I've sort of pushed us into this segue here. Scott knows what I'm about to chat about. We had Rick Taylor of RBI Music on, I think 2 episodes ago, maybe 1 episode ago. We became fast friends with him. He did the coolest thing ever. And this is a free plug for him. He sent Scott and I each one of these. So it is the coolest thing in the history of cool things. So remember Silvertone from Sears?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone does. Remember the Silvertone amp, the 212, right?
Sure, yep.
This is the Jackson Audio Silvertone 1484. It replicates the sound of the Silvertone 1484 amp. And we were just, before we went on, Scott and I plugged mine in. It's the most amazing pedal you've ever listened to.
Kind of crazy.
Wow.
It's not really so much an overdrive, although it can be. It makes my old, and it turns out I have an old vintage amp, which is also owned by RBI Music, and it just makes it sound like a Silvertone. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And to talk about your guys, if they had enough confidence, right? Some of these bands, they could take one pedal like that,
sure,
and clean with a little bit of flavor in there, and they'll sound and let you work the rest.
No, I stripped down my rig too. I used to carry a big pedal board and I did the Line 6 thing with their big pedal board thing. And then I just got it down to like 1 unit, $300 unit, got overdrive, modulation, delay, reverb, and a boost, and that's it. Done.
I see a bunch of guys using the Helix, and they'll get in there and customize it. You know what I'm saying? And that typically never works out great. So I probably run into more thin-sounding guitars because guys just don't understand the technology, that fat tone out of these digital processors. I know have mixed other guys, especially I do a lot of up-and-coming Nashville guys, acoustic duos, like 3 and 4 piece guys that are doing like field dates coming through, up 95 or up, 81 or something like that. And I've seen a couple of those guys with Helixes that sounded like a million. It was minimal stuff. It's the same thing we deal with digital consoles. When digital consoles came to the forefront, they were amazing for 1,000 different reasons. But one of the Achilles heels of that, and I run into this, I interned some guys from a local university from their audio, degree class, and it's like, man, just because you have 20 you can apply to that channel doesn't mean you should. It's like the difference between intelligence, understanding that tomatoes are technically a fruit, where wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of mentality, where less is always more. And the cats that understand that and don't try to compress every patch and EQ, play really good guitars. You know what I'm saying? Have it at the source. I'm kind of a purist that way. Because I came up, I'm 51, I'm old enough to remember analog. I came out of the analog world into the digital world. And I remember the first time I looked at a digital console, I was like, this is going to be a disaster for guys who don't understand analog, because they're going to think because it's available, we should use this on every channel. And you really don't.
Yeah, and it's degrading what your right hand and left hand are doing on the strings.
Absolutely.
If you don't do it with intention.
Sure.
I mean, look, I joke that I'm not good, but I know, like, I could cover up a lot. But if you want really good music, if you're not doing it with intention, if you're not doing it with focus and planning on what you want to accomplish, I mean, I'm listening to you talking about what you're doing with intention for the sound of the band, and you're talking about maybe getting the ambient sound of a tom-tom, and you're saying snare doesn't need it because it'll pop on its own. Acoustic guitar, obviously you want that straight into the board. There's a science to what you're doing, there's an intention to what you're doing.
Sure.
And you're not goofing around. You're saying,
right,
here's the venue, there's 300 people in here, the band's over here, they're 20 feet from the nearest table. I want the people in front to not be overwhelmed, but I want the people in the back to hear. I want these rear speakers here. I got to make sure the band can hear what they're doing, with the monitors, all that stuff, but you're doing it with intention.
Yeah, you're going to own it, because it's your mix. And I take that very personal, because that's just kind of the way I'm the same way with my drumming. I'm OCD. I'm a detail guy. I'm a big personality. I am very meticulous. I am not a set it and forget it sound guy, but I don't tinker till it's horrible, because there's those guys too who don't know how to leave it alone. No, each song may require a different vocal mix, because there's 3 different vocalists in the band, or because vocal 2 sings a harmony in the second song louder than they did in the first song. So I'm trying to stay dialed in on that and be part of the presentation as if I was on stage. And that's where I think being a musician really helps you being a sound engineer, because you get this in know what I'm talking about. You get this in your DNA where you can't unplug from the music. Like, it's just part of you. And then mixing cover bands where I know 98.9% of the music they're playing anyways. I know when the guitar solo is coming. I know what the vocal harmony should sound like. I'm going to try to mix it like the record and make it sound like the record. And again, it comes back to that experience thing where you know what not to do being as important as what you actually are proactive with doing. But whatever you do, own it.
I was going to say, even when I'm setting up with a sound guy, especially if it's a newer sound guy, I have a lot of personal sound guy etiquette, I call it. I'm not noodling on my guitar while he's trying to mic my amp while his head's right there. And you'd be surprised. I'm talking to the audience now. The awful things that sound guys have to go through with bands that are really green. Right as soon as we do it, they do a sound check right away. I can't hear my vocal. I can't hear my guitar. It's like 17 different orders coming at the guy at once, and he's got to go, let me work on his mic.
Yeah.
What do you need? And now what do you need? Now I'm ready for you. What do you need?
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It goes a lot better.
Absolutely. And when you're in a middle market situation where 9 times out of 10 you're mixing monitors from front of house. And I mean, if you've got guys in in-ear monitors, that's awesome. That takes that, especially if they're all inclusive and they have their own split snake, and their own mixer on stage, and they're mixing their own monitors. That makes a lot of young guys look good because they don't have to mix wedges, because wedges are tough to mix, and you got to have a real dialed in ear for frequency to get wedges right. Well, if I'm mixing your wedge mixes from front of house, I have to establish gain structure in the house first and come back and get your wedge mixes right, because that input gain on each channel affects the send to the wedge mixes. So it's like, guys, let me get front of house right. Then we'll come back through all this again, and we'll get monitors where we want it, and then give it a song or two in the first set, and let me get compression dialed in and things like that in a real world application where the whole band of the audience, everybody's warmed up, singing like they should. The guitar player's finally figured out what volume he's going to play at for the night, you know, and you can dial all that stuff in, then come back like song 3 or 4. I'll walk up to the stage and start looking at guys like, hey man, you cool? You know, how you feeling? And then I'll make adjustments yet again, and then save that after the first set. That's typically the way I handle that situation.
You know what I love about what I just listened to? So we have in our audience, we have people who are going to understand every single thing you said. But this is my favorite part. There are people who watch our show who know nothing about this. And what I love about it is those same people will go to bars and venues and listen to music and enjoy it. And until they watch this show, will have had no understanding or appreciation of what the non-members of the band have to do to make sure that good sound is delivered to them. And that's really cool, because I would imagine the conventional wisdom among intelligent people who know a tiny bit about music, they'll just say, well, the band turns on their instruments and they have a PA system and they play. And if the sound's good, it's because the band's good. If the sound's bad, it's because the band's bad. And part of that is true, maybe. But this whole piece of it, I think, will be wonderful for our audience who has no appreciation. Like, so let's say, for example, you go to a family party, right? And a 15-year-old kid of one of your cousins says, what do you do for a living? How would you give them the so-called elevator speech about what you do to make bands sound good?
My go-to response to that is usually I take sonic chaos and turn it into art.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That really is.
Yeah, that's and that usually flies over their head, and then I'll have to go and explain to them exactly what I do. And even conversation, they're going to walk away and tell their buddies that I was a DJ. So I mean, usually the way that goes, you know, welcome to my world, you know.
Sound guy is key, man. I can't even tell you. We got a bad sound mix or a bad sound guy, or you know, and they're out there like any profession. Some guys are really great, some guys are not so great.
Right.
And we've had guys like the thing is feeding back like crazy, and he's nowhere to be found because he's on his little iPad, who knows where.
Yeah.
So we're stopping what we're doing. We're looking around for the sound guy. You don't want to get on the mic like, where are you?
Right.
Right. But it can make or break your band experience, and you put you in the zone or take you out of the zone.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Because I mean, what we're trying to do is really just make sure all the levels are in the correct channels. Like guitar 1 is one channel, kick is in the kick channel. We really don't sculpt it into this beautiful sculpture until the band actually starts playing and we get 2 or 3, 4 songs under our belt. And now we have everybody settled in with how they're going to perform on stage. We've got compression set in a nice place where it's still dynamic and everything to death. My favorite thing and the bane of my existence is Karens who come up to you like 8 bars into the first song, like, I can't hear the vocals. I'm like, yeah, neither can working on it. You know, can you give me a second or two here? I mean, they only gave us 30 minutes to do a 90-minute setup, you know, so it was throw and go. I call it combat audio. You know, we're just trying to get the show going. Can I have 2 in, please? You know, so we talk about that a lot on the channel.
I try to, you know, help out when I can. Sometimes we bring our own mics, and you know, the guy, he drapes the wire over it, I'll stick it in there. You know, little things.
Sure.
No, it's so how do you deal on an interpersonal level? You could push off the Karen, but that's sort of bad for your business model. So how do you handle the Karen to support your business model? Or are you just busy enough you don't have to worry about Karen?
This is an ongoing conversation with production guys. Like, this conversation never ends. Like every time I get into a circle with some of my competitors, which we're all friends, by the way, and we talk to each other. So if one guy blackballs a band, you're probably going to get black auction guys, as we all talk to each other. But some guys just ignore them. It depends on the caliber of the gig. Who it is that's complaining. If it's the person that writes the check, I might smile and nod. Yeah, okay, thanks for the input. I'll make some adjustments. That rarely happens, but usually the people paying for the gig is smart enough to kind of just stay out somebody's girlfriend or someone who's a friend of the band who thinks they know something about pro audio. I mean, the reality of it is even most of the promoters and the bar owners have no idea what it is that we do. They know we load in a bunch of equipment, set it up, and make noise. And if it doesn't squeal and feedback all night, they really don't know if the guitar was nice and fat, or if the kick was, really, or the snare sounded like trash, or as crazy as it sounds, the singer sang out of key half the night. It's amazing how when you're playing the right songs that the crowd wants to hear, how much of that they don't even catch. So they really don't have any idea what it is that we do. So I just try to be decent, but man, there's been times where I've been like, you need to go away from me before I have somebody throw you out of here. I'm trying to work.
Looking out for your equipment. How many people come up and put a beer on the monitor, or the guitar player's got his foot on your gear.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or they're kicking over suds, and they don't put anything on their amp. All right.
Sure.
Their pedal board.
Sure. And you can put a do not put drinks here on the subs, and that drinks all night.
Karen puts the drink on there every time.
Absolutely.
And grabs the tambourine off the stage.
My favorite line is I'll ask them what they do for a living. And, I had one lady say, she's like, well, I'm a bus driver. It was a drummer's girlfriend at a gig. And she wanted the drums to be louder, to be stellar. And I was not going to jack with it no matter what anybody said. And ride your bus with you and tell you when to make a left turn and, how to drive the school bus and when to hit the brakes and stuff like that. Or do I follow you at work and throw rocks at you while you're mowing? Like I'll say that sometimes. And they usually don't know how to respond to that. And they'll just walk away, Yeah,
that's great. That's cool. So I want to segue a little bit now. So we got you on here because you've got an amazing online presence. So let's talk. We were talking before we started taping, because we did a show before we did a show, like we always do.
Right.
And when the beer flows, it gets even better. But so how has your internet presence, that's the wrong word, that's like an old man word, your social media presence, I am an old man, but Scott's a few months older than I am, I think. But how
I have a young wife to offset that.
That's right, we can't say it. By the way, before I'll interrupt myself, take a look at your screen right now. CLP Audio and Staging. Take your phone, take a picture of that QR code, and that is how you get to all the great stuff that JR does. But you have this fun, helpful, informative online presence. So how has that impacted upon your business model?
Man, I mean, when we first started this, it was really just a joke. And within 30 days, my phone was just going nuts. I mean,
Really?
Absolutely bonkers. Yeah. Like we just on Facebook and Instagram, and believe me, we're not making a lot of money there, but at least we're monetized now. So we're moving in the right direction. We're probably another year and a half away from being monetized on YouTube. We really don't care that much for TikTok, even though we're dumping content there every day during the week. It just brought an awareness to my company, brought depth to people's perception of who I am, because I let them into my world and I let them into my mind and the way I think about the industry, the way I think about bands. I have always been someone who has groomed bands. I've just, for whatever reason, I've always been that guy that bands came to. A lot of it comes from my reputation as a sound engineer. Really bought me credit and earned the right to speak into their lives. And I was able to say, look, if you do this and you do this and you do this, I know these things work. I was really super blessed when I was coming up in this business in the early 90s to be around guys that were very business conscious, marketing conscious, And I learned all this stuff from, some of the guys that were getting it done the best. So nothing has really changed in how we want to present the band. What has changed is how we get that information to the people of influence. So that's basically what the whole grumpy sound guy thing did for me. It was letting people into my world that may have only worked with me once or knew that I was this great sound engineer that runs a band and they play in another band that doesn't have the budget to hire us because they're playing C rooms or whatever the case is. It just opened up all these people's perception to who I was. Like, wow, this guy's a lot deeper than what we thought he was. We just thought he was a sound engineer, and here he has all this knowledge about how to market bands and how to make a band successful. The last band was a classic rock band. It was sponsored by Budweiser. I managed that band, and all the things that I tell bands today, I had put into use with that band. That band broke up 10 years ago. So go back. That band was together 7 years. So go back 17 years when we were all posted on MySpace. I was still doing all the same stuff I'm telling bands to do now. Transitions are, the importance of, song selection. Play the freaking songs right. All the simple, basic fundamentals that people miss because they get too lost in buying guitars or the whole persona. They want to be office superstar. They're really not interested in being an A band. They just want to be well, that's all stuff that, man, the culture of guys that I came up in the business with, I'm shocked at how shocked people are to hear this knowledge. Because I'm like, this is just like commonplace stuff. And I've heard it on your channel.
You think it is. I know, but you think it's commonplace, but it's not.
You guys talk about this stuff all the time. It's
we
like,
do,
Yeah, give us your top 2 or 3 dumbest things you've seen bands do.
Oh, man.
How much time
dumbest things. Well, the first thing would be piss off the sound engineer in the first 5 minutes in the venue. That's never going to go well.
Yeah.
It's never going to go well. I am so completely anal about the mix being a representation of who I am that even if you piss me off, I'm still going to try to give you the best. That mix belongs to me. That's how I view that, But really just being a complete freaking asshound, man, and, coming in and acting like a fool and act like these guys. I was just talking the other day on one of the reels about band members who claim to be sound engineers. And then they want to come in and they want to, tell me how to do my job all night. And that's only going to happen once with me. So I'll never answer the phone again. I'm crazy screaming busy. I don't need that kind of drama. But stupid things, snorting cocaine in the bathroom and getting caught by security. I had a couple guys in a venue I was working with. That might sound really rock and roll, and all that kind of stuff. But in a venue that is a family-oriented venue where I came in and caught you guys, you were in the bathroom doing this junk, and the security happened to walk in just as it was going down. And those guys played in multiple bands that were big bands in this venue, and the owner just axed every one of the bands without question. He had a zero tolerance for that kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, go do that stuff in a parking lot like the rest of the world. Don't bring that stuff in here and do that. Yeah.
I mean, we play kid-friendly, family-friendly shows. We're not allowed to curse. And you wouldn't believe when I'm at that venue and I'm not in the band, I'm a patron, how many times they slip up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a hard rule to follow. But it does. It ain't coke, but it still pisses off the management when you say shit or F or whatever.
Right. Look, man, I'm as guilty as having a trailer park mouth as everybody else is, But the thing is a radio personality buddy of mine told me one time, I'm like, dude, how do you not drop F-bombs on the radio? Because I spent some time in radio 1,000 years ago. And he was like, I just don't drop that kind of F-bombs in my personal life. He's like, when you're in the habit of not cursing, or at least using big, crazy, major curse words in your day-to-day life, you don't have to worry about slipping up on air. And it's the same way, when you're playing in a band or whatever, And I really think that makes a band look tacky. Look, I drop F-bombs like everybody else, but when you're on stage, I think you're held to a higher level of accountability. And I think it just makes you drop an F-bomb word, man. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. It could sound pandering to the audience and a little crass. And I think these days you're not edgy because you drop an F-bomb. I mean, network television has it at this point almost, you know. So
Sure.
I don't think you're getting credibility, street cred with F-bombs now. I
Right.
think you just look like you haven't found a more creative way to be edgy.
Well, there's
Right.
some songs that actually have curses in them.
Right.
Won't
Yeah.
Sing Enemy.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like, Kick the living shit out of me and Worst Enemy that we play all the time. And then I
Yeah.
get to the chorus
Yeah.
and I go, no cursing at Martell's or whatever. and make a
Yeah,
joke
right.
out of it. Because I'll say
Right.
crap. Let them say shit.
Right.
The
Yeah.
venue doesn't want you
Right.
to curse into the mic.
It can be a real fun game to make up other things to put in the place of
Yeah.
curse words that really
Make it
only
part
the
of the
band
show.
will catch. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
That's good stuff. And now give us one more. Give us another, just the stupid shit that you've
Yeah.
seen bands do or not do.
Take as long as you want. I could edit this out.
I think
You're gonna look like you're gonna look like you're snappy with the answers, JR. Really.
Or we keep it in because that was pretty cool what Scott
I think
said.
the way I think a lot of bands make mistakes by not taking what they're doing seriously, and it makes them look
Amen.
like an ass. You know,
Yeah.
like they show up late, they take forever to get set up. They want to set up there and tune their drums for 30 minutes while the dinner crowd is still there, you know, and things like that. Or there's a second stage. Like I just finished a summer concert series here locally where we had a big stage, and then about, I don't know, 80 or 100 feet in front of us, probably about 80 feet in front of us, was an acoustic stage that played the first part of the show. And the band, this guy was playing his first set. In fact, we would do sound check during his break. He only did 2 sets. And you know, guys would start honking on their guitars and drums, and I'd have to be like, "Whoa, dude, you need to pump the brakes. This guy's on stage down here, and I don't want to be disrespectful to him." I wish I had like some more like super crazy, like people blacked out on stage, or you know, I had one. The singer and the bass player almost got in a fist fight right at the end of the night, at the climax of the night. Like it's assholes to elbows about 50 feet in front of the stage, and these guys are yelling at each other on stage and pushing each other.
Wow.
That's probably the craziest thing recently.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I like assholes to elbows. I'm going to use that from now on.
Yeah.
When I talk to Johnny Compton over there in West Virginia, I'm going to drop that on him. He's going to, where'd you learn elbows to assholes?
Right,
yeah, by the way,
right.
do you know Johnny?
I don't. Where's he at in West Virginia?
God only knows.
But he's in a band called Hair Supply. Do you know them?
Never heard of them.
Because West Virginia is probably about half the size of Jersey. I think something. I guess it's big enough where you wouldn't. It's not that incestuous there, but you would know.
The thing is, when you tell people you're from West Virginia, they're like, "Oh, do you know so and so?" Like we all have like a weekly meeting, and you know everyone's whatever. I live in that little football shaped thing that's kind of the thumb of the state. You know, the Eastern Panhandle, and we are radically different than the rest of the state because, and I'm from here. I've lived here my whole life. Because we are a bedroom community for DC, you know, and we look more like Frederick, Maryland, and Leesburg.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, than what we do the rest of the state. I am only 90 minutes from Inner Harbor or 90 minutes from the mall in DC. You know, it's a great place to live because the taxes are cheap, and I'm within striking distance of all, you know, 2 big markets, you know, or whatever.
I went to.
I don't know where he's at. He may be further.
He might be. Yeah. I went to GW, and one of my summers for money, I worked for their building department. Half the people who worked there lived in West Virginia.
I can't believe you went to Get Wasted University.
I did, and I did.
I went to UR High.
I'm probably
I'm
probably 3 hours from Morgantown, where WVU is. You know, that's down. That's down in the middle of the state. Just north of Charleston, I think, I don't know, 45 minutes or something. And when you go down, whenever I go down to Morgantown to do a gig or something, it's always a culture shock because it's so radically different than what it is up here on the I-81 corridor. Because we're sandwiched between Winchester, Virginia, and Hagerstown on I-81. You know, so
I pass through your neck of the woods all the time because my kids go to Tulane, so I take 81. So I passed through that little sliver. I was there in May, I passed through a little
Sure.
sliver, and I'm in West Virginia for maybe what 30 minutes. Is that how long 81 goes through?
It's
It roughly?
26 miles of redneck love.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's pretty. It looks like it's
Yeah,
nothing different. You just see the sign, "Welcome to West Virginia," you
sure.
know. But
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and I didn't realize 3 hours you could drive. I thought it was smaller than that.
No, no, no. The
I think
joke
it's bigger
is,
than you think.
this is West Virginia. We live here. That's
I
Wheeling.
love it,
This is the Eastern Panhandle.
Scott. I think we've been disrespected.
Oh no.
If you're from
So
West Virginia, you're laughing right now because it's like I live in a little town called Inwood, and our famous saying is, "It's all good in Inwood."
I like it, and you're where the Waltons were, right?
Not quite, not quite.
No, I mean West Virginia though. They were.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Waltons were in West
I
Virginia.
think that
didn't
was
even know
southern
that.
West Virginia.
Okay,
We'll have to ask Johnny where he's from.
we will.
Over
Good night,
there at
Johnny.
Hillbilly
Yeah. Good night, Mary
Hillbilly
Ellen.
Caviar Studios.
I
Yeah.
think we just discovered each other on TikTok, if I'm not mistaken. Like literally like a week ago or something. His thing came up in my feed, and I seen West Virginia, and I was friend. So I followed him, and he followed back. And he's liked a bunch of my videos, and vice versa. But we haven't had a chance to actually correspond yet to see where we are in proximity of each other.
He's
Great
worth
guy.
knowing. He's he's just a good human being.
I keep threatening I'm going to
Sure.
come down to West Virginia and jam with him and stuff. And I don't know. It's just never going to happen.
Cool.
I don't think, but I would like it to happen.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Cool.
Well, here's the crazy thing about our show. So, if you weren't looking at a watch, what would you say? We've been chatting about 10 or 15 minutes?
Oh, 15 minutes tops.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. We're at 51.
Right.
Minutes.
Exactly.
People are shocked. So when you have a great guest and a great time, the show just absolutely flies.
51 minutes of ranting.
Yeah.
Right.
So before we wrap things up, how do people? You don't need anyone to find you, but how do people find you?
If you're interested in the Grumpy Sound Guy content, you can literally just go to YouTube and search the Grumpy Sound Guy, and you'll find the channel. Same thing on TikTok, I believe. You can look me up on all the socials. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter. It's one of them kind of there, but I don't check it very often. I'm on Facebook most of the time because I'm old. That's where all us old people are, is on Facebook.
We're all comfortable on it, right? We feel safe
So we
there.
know the format. We don't want anybody on our lawn. We don't want to change how anything is set up. So, Facebook. So if you look for JR Everhart, you'll find me there. If you look for CLP Audio and Staging, if you Google CLP Audio and Staging, you'll find me. Company website. I have a brand new website the marketing people just released 2 days ago. CLPaudio.com is where you can find me.
I looked at it today. It's got this scroll where you could press the arrow left and right.
Sure.
And
And we're getting ready to unroll in about another 4 or 5 weeks subscription-based consultation, because we're getting people who want that.
Ooh.
So, I mean, for a small monthly fee, you could bring me on board with your band's team for me to critique you, to help you, to come out and set up a start scene in your sound system. If you're a bar who can't afford to hire a guy of my expertise level full time for a monthly fee, I can come in, do maintenance to your rig once a month, and I can train your people and also funnel people into your venue and help you get staffed correctly, because I'm super networked with tons of sound engineers. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of really cool, fun stuff coming. Probably going to hit November with all that sort of stuff. And we'll have 2 different categories. We'll have one for the corporate entities that will be one price point, and then we'll have one for like the normal cover band musician, local guy, even like a local church that has a small budget that just wants someone like me to come in and keep their staff dialed in once a month or something. So we're real excited about that. That's the next level of this on this.
That is something a
website.
lot of people could use.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I believe so too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a market for that for sure.
Yeah.
Just step into any club and you'll see.
Sure.
You could start ranting right away and say, this needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed.
And
whatever.
the thing is what we're working on, we haven't dialed it all in yet, but if you get some of the bigger packages where there's more amenities in those packages, you even get discounts on my services. And we're working on a bump free booking. What I mean by that is a lot of times, like say I work for band A over here, 12, 15 times a year. But in the summertime, when I have $10,000, food truck festivals coming in that need stage sound and lights, it's hard for me to take this, $1,500 gig when I got 10 grand laying on the table over here. Well,
Yeah.
there'll be a certain tier of the subscription-based stuff that if you're vested in that, you'll get a bump guarantee where you won't get bumped. So your gigs will be solid with us. And I think that's going to be super popular because that's probably one of the biggest challenges I have right now. Guys, I turned down probably 200 shows this year.
Wow.
And I swore to God that I was only going to I did 180 this year. I said, I'm backing it off. I'm going to do about a buck and a quarter, 125 shows. Right now, if I don't book another show and I got a bunch of time open here in the fall, I'm at 187 shows. So, I mean,
Wow.
I'm a small company. I'm trying to stay small. I've got 2 or 3 part-time 1099 guys that work with me, and we're just trying to keep it personal so that we can keep the consistency of what we do at CLP2B.
I love that. I absolutely love it. And, and on behalf of Scott and I want to thank you. This is a topic we haven't covered before. And I think, our listeners are really going to get a lot out of it.
And it's even my
Cool,
way to pay
man.
homage to all the sound guys, that I've worked with over the years. They've all been terrific.
Yeah.
And, you said about not pissing sound guys off when you first get there. Listen to me, band guys. Shut up.
Yeah.
Let them hook up the stuff. Let them get the mic going. Don't be testing out the distortion channel on your guitar when the guy's got his ear right up to the amp looking to do the mic placement. Come on.
Yeah.
It's basic stuff. Basic stuff.
And I mean, the bottom line about that scenario is if you're going into a venue that's had the same forever, he knows that room better than anybody. Follow his lead, and I promise you your band will sound like dynamite.
Yeah.
Good
Stone
stuff.
Pony, best sound in town around here. They got separate sound guys for monitoring, separate sound guys for front of house, and it always sounds
Amazing.
It's not super loud. It just sounds really clear and crispy. You could hear everything. It's always amazing sound there.
It really is.
Sure.
Well, this has been 5 minutes that became an hour. Thank you. This was
Thanks
fun.
for
This was
having
a
me
really
on,
fun
man.
show. Absolutely. As we always say, you come here a stranger, you leave a friend.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So we had a great
And
time.
I keep telling Paul I'm going to come up and sneak up here. When I do, I'll let you know. We'll all get together and have a beer.
Yeah.
Oh, we
definitely.
absolutely will. Here, we'll share a Genesee. That's the crap I'm drinking tonight. Genesee when there's nothing better in your fridge. I just came up with that one. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Again, I say it at the beginning now, thanks to Erin, who reminded me through Scott's wife. Subscribe, but it gets buried if it's at the end of the show. Thank you again, and we really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Sure.
We're going to take
Thanks,
us out
guys.
with a little Big Daddy Abel and the Amish Outlaws. I love this bumper.
Oh,
he
you
did,
got to
so-
stick around and watch
Awesome.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Check it out.
definitely.
I'm number 2. I'm number 2. No, I was the second. That's right. I was the second one. The second on Guitar Tales, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching it right now. I'm Big Daddy Abel, the Amish Outlaws. I gotta go back to work. Here we go. Guitar Tales, watch it.